Good. All right. So welcome to the show, Alex. Thank you so much for being here with me. I really appreciate having this conversation with you. I'm not going to make a huge intro. I never do that on this show. I leave that up to you. So my first question really is who are you? Who is Alex Inchbald?
Daniel, look, it's a genuine privilege to be here. Let me say that first up. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and to be able to talk to you on your show is really a humbling experience for me. So thank you for having me. Who am I? I'm an extreme artist, and I'm a creative mentor, a visionary mentor. So I paint in extreme locations all over the world. Painting you see behind me, I painted last weekend in Croatia. It was about 35 degrees there, so pretty hot. So the paint was drying really, really fast. But I also paint in winter. I paint at the top of mountains. I paint in 75-kilometer-an-hour winds. I painted a few weeks ago, and I had to literally tie the canvas down with a view, over Mont Blanc. Why do I do that? I do that to explore what it takes to be creative everywhere, because I know, as well as you do, and many leaders around the world, that we need creativity. We need more creativity, and we need to unleash the creativity inside ourselves to address the biggest challenges that we face. So what I then do is I deconstruct what I learn from going to these extreme places all over the world, and I help leaders become more visionary so that they can, along with their teams, tackle the biggest challenges that the organization faces and that ultimately humanity faces. And I'm very proud to, and humbled as well, to be working alongside some brilliant partners. And we recently founded an organization in Switzerland called Creative Leadership Partners, which is, and the purpose is to do a little bit about what I've just talked.
Yeah, I love that. I love that clarity of message as well. So tell me a bit about your story. What's your story, Alex?
Oh, well, look, I used to live in the UK, and you can probably tell that from the accent. And I escaped 13 years ago. 13 years ago, at the end of September, I escaped, and I love the UK. I have family there. I have friends there. But one of the things I didn't do there is paint. And in fact, I stopped painting when I was 16, and something happened to me. Two things in very quick succession. The first was I painted, and I remember the moment that I was in the art department, the sun streaming through the window. And as the sun streamed through the window, suddenly pink appeared on the canvas. And I'd never used pink before. And then turquoise appeared on the canvas, and the whole painting just started to resonate on a whole different level. And then, somebody came to me and they said, "You know what, Alex, you could sell that painting. You could sell it for £200. Now, £200 when I was 16, that was a lot of money. So I was so excited. My dreams were up here. I thought my dreams are going to come through, come to reality. I'm going to become an artist. That's what I've always dreamed of doing ever since I was 2, when I did my first hand paintings. And then 2 weeks later, literally 2 weeks after that, my dad came to me and he said, "Look, Alex, I've talked to your art teacher, and we've come to the conclusion that you're never going to make money as a professional artist." So my dreams up here suddenly dashed, exploded. And therein started, the most difficult journey of my life. I went down and down and down and down and down. In fact, I went so low that I had eating problems, I had drinking problems, I ended up in hospital twice through drinking too much, and I don't think you can get much lower than I got and still actually be walking around. I remember looking up at the crags. I went to Edinburgh University, and the crags is an area, if you've ever been to Edinburgh, it's high cliffs. And I remember thinking, I wonder what it'd be like to fly, to jump off those cliffs. And that would obviously have been my last flight. So, I got as low as I think it's possible to get. Therein started a journey kind of back up my mountain. And every step along that journey was a step where I unleashed creativity in myself, and I released more potential in myself. And as I climbed back up that mountain, I realized that I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve in the UK. So I left the UK, I escaped from the UK, and I moved to the area around Geneva. And within literally a couple of months, this house became free. And I remember looking at the house from a restaurant and thinking, I would love to live in this house. Why? Because it was on top of a mountain. And its view was across the chain of the Alps. So in the middle, you could see Mont Blanc. And every night, when the sun set, Mont Blanc went this bright pink. And so I moved into this house, and just miraculously, it just came about that I was able to rent this house with this stunning view. And there I started painting again. And that was on my 30th birthday. I decided at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to start painting. It still took me another 6 months to do it. And then it took me about 3 years to really work through some of the big challenges that I put in place. I put them in place in my mind, and they were blocking my creativity, and not just in my mind, in my heart, in my gut. And it was painful. It was a real dive into the darker side, the shadow, let's say, and I worked through that. And that's an ongoing journey. I don't think that my art is finished, but my art now is at a totally different level. And that started to inspire me. It started to inspire me to think differently about the work that I was doing, which was around communications. And my background is in marketing and advertising and communications. And I suddenly realized that there was kind of these two parallel streams going on, and that businesses were desperately in need of what I was doing on top of mountains, and yet they didn't know how to do it. So as I began to master my own creativity, I realized there was something I could share with other people. And then I started to see also the pain that organizations were experiencing in terms of breakdowns, in terms of stress, in terms of midlife crisis, in terms of increased suicide. And I thought, well, that doesn't work. But I've been there. In a sense, I've been to that point. I've been to the point of breakdown. And then I started to look at some of the big issues, and I got to work with organizations like the UN, the Red Cross, World Health Organization, Gavi, which is the leader in terms of immunization globally, the Global Fund, which deals with AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. And I saw these extraordinary problems out there in the world, which are now encapsulated into the 17 global goals, or the Sustainable Development Goals. And I realized, hold on a moment, there's pain at a humanity level. There's pain at an organizational level, and there's pain at an individual level. And what I've taught myself is how to resolve the pain at the individual level by going inside myself. And I also realized that what was outside of me was just a reflection of what was going on inside of me. So if I could teach myself to overcome my own pain inside, then I could start to create a different world around me. And as I started to create this different world around me, I started to realize, well, hold on a moment. If individuals in organizations do that, because an organization is just a collection of individuals, then they can unleash creativity and start to address not just their own personal pain, but the organization's pain. And if organizations could do that, and they could do that with the same thrust, then they'd start to address humanity's issues. And so that took me on a whole journey of, first of all, creating my own solo organization called Realize Your Idea, whose purpose was really to start that journey. And then I realized that this vision was far too big for one individual. To free the world's creativity for good, that's far too big. I can't do that on my own. And so my family was beginning to suffer, and my health was could have taken an impact. And I'll tell you about the family in a second. And so what I realized is this isn't going to work on my own. I can't do this on my own. And there are other people out there who are on a similar journey. And this isn't just my journey. Other people are already doing this. So what's my job? My job is to help accelerate that, but with other people. So at that point, I realized we needed to do something together. And I rang a friend of mine, brilliant guy who works in banks and with financial institutions in the UK, one of the most inspirational leaders that I've ever come across. And I phoned Faisal and I said, Faisal, this is what I'm up to. And he said, isn't that interesting? I'm up to something very similar. So we got together and we started a partnership. And I've been talking to a few other people as well. Anyway, cut a long story short, we're now 7 people, 7 co-founders of Creative Leadership Partners. And we're just on the verge of doing some very, very exciting stuff with some very big organizations.
I love that. Thank you for telling that story, because it's just it kind of maps out a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about, especially also the vision, unleashing creativity on the world for good. Do I say it right? Or
that's it. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's my vision. And obviously when you come together with a group of people, as much as, my vision is, I'm passionate about that. What I also realized is that for people to feel ownership over something bigger, we needed to create a vision that was greater than an individual. So our vision, our collective vision, is to transform the future, which is even bigger. And that just humbles me to be involved with an extraordinary group of people doing that.
Well, it's interesting because it's, transforming the future. It's kind of like, it's a bit like this destination that you can get to with 100 million different ways probably. But as you are the creative leadership partners, you do it through creativity, and kind of like your vision is pretty much that is the vision for the organization, or for what you are creating with this organization. So that is really it's really powerful, and I love the clarity as well. I talked to a friend of mine yesterday, and he talked about having this umbrella as the vision being the umbrella, because once you open that umbrella, that vision, you can it's easy afterwards to make sure that everything you do is aligned underneath that umbrella. And if something is outside, you can just say, no, that doesn't work. It's not for me. It's not what I'm born to do. Sorry, it's not what I'm meant to do here in this world. So it's not up to me to do that. And it just gives you so much freedom, essentially, to say yes and to say no to certain things. And I just love that clarity of that vision you have. So tell me a bit more about the things that you're currently creating with Creative Leadership Partners. What are some of the things that you put in place? I know you hosted an exhibition a couple of weeks ago in London. That's on the especially on the arts side. What is on that side and also on the business side currently happening?
Sure. Well, let me tell you a little bit about London, and I'm going to tell you a story which fits in with the point you were making about vision, because we ran a workshop a couple of weeks ago, which you might be a little bit interested in. So the exhibition in London was the title of the exhibition was Change, and it was in one of the leading advertising agencies in London, an agency called Mother, which is a very, very creative agency. One of my friends is a very senior executive there, and he said, look, it'll be great for our clients to be exposed to your work and also to have a conversation around change, because the only thing which is constant today is change. How we respond to that change is a choice. And what most of us do, take Brexit, for example, Brexit, which has obviously impacted the UK massively in terms of exchange rates, in terms of public attitude, and will at some point have an impact on the EU, and in particular in developing countries, because when the exchange rate collapses, which is what's happened in the UK, then the pound doesn't go as far, and the UK is one of the biggest donors globally to addressing some of the biggest challenges that I mentioned earlier in terms of AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis. So the pound is going to go less far. There's going to be less money in the economy. Actually, one of the biggest impacts is going to be outside Europe. It's going to be in Africa. It's going to be in Asia, which I personally find very, very sad. However, let me try and spin that the opposite way, because our view is that kind of change, if you look at it from the correct perspective, is an opportunity. Now, I wouldn't have voted that way. I genuinely wouldn't. And I woke up the morning of the vote, and I grabbed my phone and I thought, I'm going to see that we voted to stay. Oh, my compatriots have voted to stay, and the exchange rate's gone up. Well, it didn't happen that way. And I looked at my phone, and for the first time in a long time, I panicked. And that panic probably lasted for about half an hour. And I sat down and I cleared my mind, and I realized, you know what? this is an opportunity to do something fresh. Everyone agrees the EU is broken. Whether you wanted to stay or you wanted to leave, everyone agrees it's broken. It's broken, right? The system was designed for another era. That's fine. So what does the vote do? Well, the vote is an opportunity to do something fresh. Not just for the 17 million who voted to leave, not even for the 16 million who voted to remain, but actually there are 500 million people in Europe. What about the 500 million people in Europe? What about the 7 billion people around the planet, some of whom I've just mentioned? Could the UK, could the leadership in the UK develop a vision that would be powerful enough to inspire not just the 1 million who voted differently in the UK, but the 500 million in Europe with a new vision for Europe, with a new way of doing things, because they get to start from scratch. 40 years of bureaucracy put to one side. What about creating a vision that would not just inspire the 500 million in the EU, but would inspire all governments all over the world to do things which are more in line with where the world is today? So that was that's just one example of what we talk about when we talk about change. And the exhibition was really just an opportunity to have that kind of conversation. Now, in the UK, obviously, they're fascinated by Brexit. But what else are businesses interested in? What else are people interested in terms of change? So we're also thinking of taking the same show to DC in the fall. We're thinking of taking it to Toronto in the fall, just to have conversations with, real change makers and see what they're up to. We don't have all the answers. In fact, we say we don't have many of the answers, but together with other people, they have the answers. And I think what we're really good at is asking the correct questions to help elicit those answers. So that's kind of on the art side. For me, it's really just a vehicle to have great conversations with people, to network, to have a drink, to chill out. How rarely do we do that after work these days? Actually just go and talk to people. We're just typing away. So that's on the art side. And we had a great venue, and I had a whole load of my paintings there, and that was just really special. And I should add as well that for me, the painting itself is not the end of it. In fact, what I do most of the time now is I produce a video. So every painting has a video, and that video is it tells the story of the painting, and it tells the message that comes out of each painting. And each painting has a specific story and has a specific message. So that's kind of on the painting side, and we can go a little bit more into the painting if you're interested, because there's some very interesting stories and messages around that. But I did say I was going to tell you another story and around vision and the power of vision. And I was lucky enough to go to Nordvik, which is about an hour from Amsterdam, a couple of weeks ago, to run a workshop with a medical association. Now, medical associations are well known for being intellectually brilliant, for being very, very smart. And so we had some very, very smart people in the room. And they said the night before, what we want to focus on is we want to focus on a series of initiatives which is going to move this organization forward. I said, great, no problem. We'll do that. Absolutely. With great pleasure. The only thing is that we believe that you need to clarify your vision first. So I went, okay. So, well, look, to be honest, you could work out which initiatives you want to run. You don't need us. But what we're really, really good at is helping you to define your vision. And that kind of triggered an hour-long debate, right? Where they really grilled us. And that then triggered a discussion over dinner where they continued grilling us. So they grilled us for about 3 hours. And at a certain point, the whole atmosphere, you could feel the atmosphere just changed. And the president got what we were saying. And then we said, okay, let's spend the rest of the evening just having a pleasant chat. So the following day we get up. We spent 2/3 of the day with these people talking about the vision, and only a third doing what they'd intended to do. How did we do that, or why did we do that? Because once we had that vision, which is always difficult to get to, But once we have that inspirational vision, exactly what you said, Daniel, a few minutes ago, then it was really, really quick to do the how bit. Because once you've got the why, the how then became really, really fast. And we took their 30 opportunities. Most organizations have, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 opportunities. They have so many opportunities out there that they're overwhelmed by the opportunities. And in fact, they won't be able to deliver on all the opportunities. So what the vision helped them to do was to say, okay, we're going to choose 5. We're going to choose 5 big ideas. And we're not going to talk about them as projects or plans or whatever. We're going to talk about them as experiments. We're just going to try something and see if that works, because that's going to free us up to think in a different way. So I totally agree with what you were saying there about vision, that when you have a vision that is really inspirational, that really touches people, not just here, not just intellectually, but touches them here in their heart, touches them in their gut, moves them, then other people want to get involved. And the equation shifts. No longer are you forcing something on somebody else. No longer are you chasing your clients. People are coming to you. It's exactly what you do. You have a really, really clear vision. Why is it that you have people coming to you every single day? Hundreds of entrepreneurs who want to speak to Daniel Geordie. Why? Because they've heard how well you connect people. And that comes from your vision. And I suspect you have to do very, very little work these days in terms of pushing your message out there. People
It's a really, really good point. I mean, I just love, what I just want to dive into a little bit, because what I love about having these conversations with people like you is, people like you and people that I interview or talk to, usually they work with large organizations, they work with organizations, and their organization is usually a lot smaller than the organizations that they work with. And what I love about these conversations is that there's always a map that is created. There's always a framework that is created, whatever that may look like in the conversations. And usually these conversations are about large organizations, leadership development, things like that. And the beautiful thing is that when we can take what's working, what we help large organizations or bigger organizations create, and leverage that in our own organizations, because we're not saying, we're just a one-man show, we're just 5 people, we're just 15, we're just 50 people, but we're thinking about leadership from day one. We're thinking about the inspiring vision from day one, and all of this, because that's what I love also about these conversations very much. And you're so right, because what you just shared before, you shared it very clearly. Everything you do and everything you build and everything you touch is designed to go in one direction, and that direction is to unleash creativity on the world for good, right? So for me, everything I touch is to create a more connected and a more human world. That is, everything I touch is going in that direction. The guy I talked to yesterday, for him, it's all about mastery in self and in others. It's pretty clear. It's actually very clear umbrellas, these visions or umbrellas, whatever you want to call them. And once we have them, we can then, exactly what you just shared before. And I love that as well. I just want to recap that. Like taking those 5 key things, because we all have many opportunities. I always I always say there's always people coming into your world every single day. Every single day, there's people on LinkedIn, you meet people one-on-one, you work with clients. There's so many conversations that are happening, so many connections that are happening every single day. And these are all opportunities. Now we can either say, okay, we're going to take all these 5,000 opportunities every year and do something with them, or we can focus on the highest impact ones and actually do something real with them instead of letting everybody randomly go into a black hole. And it's kind of like the same thing that you're talking about. It's like focusing on a couple of really important things. Like, what are the 20% that get you 80% of the way, right? We're talking leverage here. But then what are the 20% that are really fully aligned with your umbrella, with your vision? Because when that happens, then things become effortless. That's a big word that I always use, because I believe business is meant to be effortless, because if it's not, what's the point of being in business, right? I totally believe it's meant to be effortless. And that happens when we create this. And, you know, then when the other thing you mentioned is the experiment, I just love that, because you free yourself, you liberate yourself from the need of having to achieve specific outcomes if you don't even know and you haven't even tested if it actually works. Because if you're creating something for the first time, which is most of the times what we do as creative entrepreneurs and change makers, we touch something new and we do something new, right? So then you don't exactly know if what you're doing will lead to that specific outcome. It could be something completely different. But what about testing it and seeing where it takes us and looking at it as an experiment? I love that. I love it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, you know, we have a 4-step model. Most people have different models. We have a 4-step model, and you know, 80% of organizations are in the first 2 steps. They're either a control system, a few people at the top controlling the majority at the bottom. Think governments, think UN. Second step, they try and engage people. Think most corporations are trying to engage people. Still a few people at the top trying to engage the people at the bottom. According to Gallup, only 13% of people are engaged worldwide. I mentioned also the impact of that in terms of health, in terms of breakdowns, in terms of stress. Why is it that more people are getting into meditation? Why is it that more people are doing yoga or tantra or getting into exercise? Why are all these things taking off? Because there's more stress in the workplace. That model no longer works, a top-down control system. To make the jump between this model and what we call this model, which is to invert it. So when you invert it, you're not thinking head so much, you're not trying to control it intellectually, you're actually trying to release the creative potential from bottom up, both within yourself as an individual, the individual being a fractal of the organization, but also within the broader organization. When you start to do that, that's the big leap. But to make that leap, conceptually, we all get that. And we get to talk to leaders every day, and we say, you know, this is the leap you need to make between engaging and enabling. And many leaders will say to us, yes, we're doing that. We're absolutely, we enable our team. And then we go in and we do the analysis and we run the workshop, and we realize that actually the problem is not the organization, it's not the team, it's the leader. And the team or the organization is just a reflection of what's going on or not going on within the leader. And that's not a surprise. There's no criticism of the leaders. It's a reflection of our education system. It's a reflection of our culture. It's a reflection of our society, that we were all educated here. We were all educated intellectually. We were all educated to be smart. Even art, right? Even art. And I don't know about you, but I was taught to perspective in my art class, and I was taught to copy things. What were you taught to copy things from photos?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's an intellectual exercise. Copying something from a photo is an intellectual exercise. It's not about what Van Gogh did 150 years ago. He said, I painted with my heart and my soul, and in the process, I lost my mind. And some of us would say, you know what? The guy was crazy. He was ill. He went to hospital. He went to mental asylum. Well, so would you if you weren't able to communicate what you were able to see. I was able to see energy before we were able to talk about energy. How do I know that? Because I can see energy. I can see it flowing through mountains. Mountains talk to me. Now, you may say I'm crazy, but here's the thing. I can talk about energy today, and you can nod your head. 150 years ago when Van Gogh was painting, nobody knew what energy was. The word didn't even exist in common parlance. It wasn't until Einstein in the 1920s, he went, hold on a moment, there's something called energy, and the whole world's energy. And everyone went, oh, yeah, that's right. So here he is in the 1870s doing this. But what he taught us, which is gut and heart, which is really where creativity comes from. Einstein, you know, your intuition, gut instinct is a sacred gift. Your intellect is a faithful servant. How often do we get it the other way around? We go here rather than here. Steve Jobs, intuition is more powerful than intellect. Richard Branson, I use intuition more than gathering large amounts of data. So our leadership and our leaders have been taught in a system which primarily focuses here. And it's not just the school system, it's the business school system, it's the university system, it's the business system is focused intellectually, not focused on heart and gut. So what we do is we turn the whole system upside down, and we help people to make that leap. It's a leap that you have made. I know you've made it, because otherwise what's happening in your world wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. And it's just, especially when we talk about, the creativity, it's also interesting. Like I work with an abundance coach right now on money mindset and things like that. And one of the things she always reminds me of is that things are, it's basically, whenever we sort of like create something or do something, it's less us coming up with an idea, but it's more of our mind letting that idea flow through, and it comes from a different place. And that's something that always strikes me when I talk to her. And it's I think it's such a powerful way of looking at the world, because once again, it's very liberating. It's very, very liberating when you don't always have to, or think you have to, try to control everything, because control is very, very, it's not liberating. It's very, it's like a jail cell. Control is like a jail cell. And if you can let go of that control of trying to force things, whatever way we want to talk about it, it's just so liberating, and things can just like really flow. I think flow is the best word. Yesterday I had a conversation with a client of mine. She was like, how do you write articles? How do you do that? You write a lot of content and they're really, really good. And I always sit there and I try to come up with something. It doesn't work. And I said, look, I have that. And if that happens to me, I just, instead of thinking about writing an article, I go into my journal. I write a journal entry. And then midway through the journal entry, I go like, that would be a really good article, because I'm not thinking about writing an article, and I'm not thinking about the practical side of that article, the impact of the article, the article to generate business and all of that stuff, right? So I'm trying to control it that way. But when I just write a journal entry, I let it flow, because there's no attachment to that. It's just for me. Nobody else will see it. And then midway through, I go like, oh, that would be a good article. So there's so many examples out there in the world where this really, really, really takes place. There's 100, examples in my life that always take place that way.
Yeah, well, I think I've asked you this question before, but I'm going to ask it again anyway, because we're here. When do your best ideas come to you? When do your very best ideas come to you?
Well, it's usually when I'm on my bike. Yeah, it's usually when I'm on my bike or walking somewhere outside.
So walking or on your bike. So I think I've told you this as well, that I've asked this question of hundreds of people, different ages, different cultures all over the world. And I've heard that answer. I've heard on my bike, I've heard in the shower, I've heard first thing when I wake up, last thing at night when I go to bed, when I'm writing my journal, when I'm reading, when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning, when I'm gardening, when I'm driving, when I'm traveling, when I'm on the train, when I'm skiing, when I'm doing yoga, when I'm in a sauna, spa, whatever. Okay. I have never once in all of those hundreds of questions had the answer when I'm at my desk working. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. And yet we're supposed to be strapped to the desk. And when you're struggling for inspiration, you don't kind of sit there at your desk. You go and grab your journal. I suspect I had this visual of you going off and sitting on a sofa, or you going to some other part of the room and just starting to write the journal. I know that's what I do. And, if you take just that insight, right, and then overlay onto it what Van Gogh said, I go out of my mind. Well, I'm speaking to a gastroenterologist this afternoon. One of the things I'm going to talk to him about is a theory of creativity. and it's something that I believe we can prove, which is we know now that there are neurons in the gut and the stomach lining. Scientists at Nestle, food scientists at Nestle, they proved that. We know there are neurons around the heart as well. So we proved that. That means there is a brain here and a brain here. And if you go all the way back to the origins of man, right, and we assume that, you know, that man evolved from single cell organisms, well, this brain, the one here, came before this brain. So here's the theory that I'm working on, and it brings together a whole load of different traditions. It brings together science, but it also brings together Ayurveda. Ayurveda, they say that energy flows up from the earth. It flows up through your legs and into your gut. In Japanese culture, they talk about the lower dantian. Chinese culture, the lower dantian. In Japanese culture, they talk about the hara. In Indian culture, they talk about the second chakra. And all of these different traditions, if you fuse them together, what they all seem to indicate is there is immense power in the lower gut. Look at Tantra. What does Tantra say? It says rather than projecting your creative energy out into the world through one part of your body, circle it through the body. Transform it. Bring it up the spine and transform it. And it will shower your head with a far greater sense of bliss, a far greater orgasm than you could ever have by physically ejaculating something out of your body. Take that basic principle and then overlay creativity onto it. Because all that energy is that rushes up your spine, that's Kundalini energy. That's the creative spirit running through your body. So imagine if we could prove that with science. We could prove that actually creativity doesn't come from here. It isn't an intellectual process. It comes more likely from here and from your gut. And so I'm actually speaking to a gastroenterologist about that this afternoon. So you heard it here first.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. I want to know more about that when you talk to that person. And, you know, just to finish that conversation off, like, what are your plans over the next 12 months, 2 years? What are you creating? What are some of the creations that you're up to?
Wow, so many things we're up to. But let me focus on just a few of them. One of our business partners is Robin Rice, who you actually introduced me to. So I'm very grateful to you for introducing us to her. She's got a big tour coming up. I suspect you've heard about it, 100 Visionaries. And we're gonna help her with that tour. We're gonna be on that tour. We're a sponsor of the tour. We're gonna be speaking at the tour. We're gonna have a stand at the tour. So we're really, really excited about that. And for those of you who don't know about 100 Visionaries, check out 100visionaries.com. It's 15 different cities, 100 visionaries in each of those cities. Starts off in DC in October, then goes to Toronto, end of October, and it's going to be hitting Europe next year. All the dates are there. It's going to be a session in Zurich. There's going to be one in Warsaw. There's going to be one in London. And I think there are a few dates which aren't yet fixed. She's going to be in Australia as well, and I think she's also going to New Zealand. And we're going to be part of that. So part of what we're doing is proving the concept, working with organizations like the International Committee of the Red Cross, Samsung, and Lloyd's Bank. That's part of what we're doing. But the really, really exciting part for me is how do we take some of the insights that we've had and work with other people? How do we partner with other people? How do we share some of the tools that we have? How do they share some of the tools that they have? How do we bring together our combined brilliance to create something that enables us to do something together? As I said, I'm absolutely convinced from my own experience that I can't do this on my own. That's why I partnered with my partners. But the 6-7 of us can't do this on our own either. So part of creative leadership is, and the essence behind it is building a partnership, building partnerships with people, building links with people, building conversations with people who are all heading in the same direction, because together we will make a difference. On our own, our difference, our impact will be limited. And so those conversations, those 100 visionaries for us, when we look at it from creative leadership perspective, is an opportunity to meet people. It's an opportunity to have conversations. And at the same time, we're also going to have an exhibition in DC. We're talking about whether we can actually have an exhibition over there, and potentially in Toronto as well. And that will be the same exhibition or a similar exhibition, the Change exhibition I talked about. So those are kind of two areas that we're focusing on. The third area is around just growing out the model, proving that this model that we've created, which starts with unleashing creativity, then helping people to define a vision for themselves, and then a vision for the team, a vision for the organization. Then moving on to actually the mindset piece, which is where Robin is a master at. For those of you who don't know Robin, I mean, she's way out there, you know, in terms of her ability to shapeshift, to really transform the future. She can work behind the scenes and literally perform miracles. And I use that word intentionally. So in terms of mindset, shifting the mindset, developing a transformational strategy from the inner game, not from the outer game, from the inner game, and then realizing that through something that we've been piloting in a bank in the UK, which we refer to as essence-based teamwork, where we take a cell of people and we, by unleashing their individual potential and then fusing that together in a cell, you unleash extraordinary power. And my partner has had some considerable success. Faisal's had enormous success, saving something in the region of £50 million in one deliverable that this team has produced. So just one deliverable out of the team has saved this organization £50 million. So what we're doing is we're putting together what we call this canvas, and we're going to be continuing to experiment with the canvas, continue to refine the canvas, continue to explore how that works with leading organizations. And we're going to be doing that directly. And once we've got that canvas really refined, that's what we're then going to share on the 100 Visionaries, and share with other, and hopefully partner with others to bring in their expertise, so that the model continues to evolve and we continue to transform organizations. So that's the third area. And the other area is really my own stuff, but it's very closely linked to what creative leadership's doing. So I have in the back of my mind this big idea to travel across Russia from west to east. Why Russia? Because Russia is a country which is held in the grips of control. It's very hierarchical. It's kind of really at the first level of that model I talked about. And I want to go and paint in extreme locations. So I want to go and paint up north of St. Petersburg, up near the Arctic Circle, where the sea gets frozen in winter. I want to go and paint on Lake Baikal, which is the world's deepest and purest freshwater lake. I want to go and paint all the way in the east. I want to go and paint up further east than Vladivostok. And I want to go and produce a series of films, and each of those films will have a message. And I want to explore at the extremes, in Siberia, whether it's possible and how it's possible to be creative everywhere, because that's my laboratory. And that's where I go inside myself and explore what it takes and how to then change myself. Because if I can do it with myself, then I can work out how to do it with somebody else. So those are probably the four big things that we're working on, alongside obviously the family as well.
Excellent. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing it so clearly. So before we finish, if somebody says, okay, I've got a really clear idea, I want to support you in this project in Russia. Maybe they say I'm a filmmaker. Maybe they say, I don't know, I know people who can get you up on Mountain X, I don't know, something like that. Or if people say we want to support creative leadership partners, or we want to work with creative leadership partners as a client with our organization, where can people connect with you based on these collaboration opportunities, and just to explore a little bit more about, collaboration, connection? Where can people connect with you?
Well, look, if you want to drop me an email, alex@alexinchbald.com, I will certainly respond to that. You can find out a little bit more about us, Creative Leadership Partners, at creativeleadership.partners. You can see some of my artwork at alexinchbald.com, and you can, connect to me through the website, or you can connect to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm at LinkedIn at Alex Inchbald. Just search for me at Alex Inchbald. And you can also find me on Twitter at @artisinside, or just type in my name. So those will be, I'm in many other places, but those will probably be the simplest.
Good.
Drop me an email. And let me just say something about that. Many of us say we want to connect with people. We want to share with people. And I think the model that you're working on is, where it's about authentic conversations. That to me is so important. The work you're doing is so important. When we move to the far end of the model, when you move all the way to step 4 or even step 5, what some people call integral leadership, what we call visionary leadership, and even beyond that to unity or mystical leadership. When you move to that kind of level, there's no such thing as competition. Competition doesn't exist. And that's a really difficult thing to get your head around, because your head naturally is taught at school as an individual to achieve in maths or science or physics or whatever. And that's a journey that we're all on. But what I realized when I formed a group called the Circle for Artists is that when another artist produces a piece of art that is brilliant, and I look at that and I go, wow, that's amazing. What I began to realize is if we're all connected, if we're all in one sense one, if we're all waves on an ocean, then it's another wave on the ocean of which I am part that has created that piece of artwork. That's another aspect of me, the bigger me, not the ego me, the bigger me has created that. Think of another analogy, a choir. When a choir is singing in harmony, it needs every part of the choir to sing. So we don't have all the answers. Socrates said, the only thing I know for sure is I know nothing. We've only started our journey. We know nothing. But what we do know is that we have some questions, and we have some thoughts, and we like to talk. And so if there are people out there who are doing something similar, I'd love to talk to you. I'd really love to talk to you. If there's somebody who has their own personal vision, I always start by helping people to identify their life purpose. Because when I know their life purpose, I know what's going to make them fulfilled. And then I'll speak to that. Because I don't want to work with somebody who's doing it and they don't love it, they're passionate about it. So that to me is really, really important. And I know it's the essence of what you do. I know that those authentic conversations are the essence of what you do. But I just wanted to give a big up to that, because what you're doing is brilliant.
Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate it. And if people want to find more about you, there's going to be a link between below that video, so you can check it out. There's going to be links to the different things that Alex is doing. So have a look there. And just, Alex, thank you so much for being here, for doing this with me. I really appreciate it. And talk to you again soon.
All right, will do. Genuinely a pleasure to talk to you, Daniel, and let's talk again soon.
Thanks, Alex. Bye-bye.